Playoff best ball has arrived. This is one of my favorite formats, maybe my favorite best ball format, just because it's so condensed relative to regular season best ball. The stakes are so high every single week. There's a lot that you're sweating. As long as your team's alive, there is a lot that you're sweating with playoff best ball. I love it. You should check it out if you have not already played playoff best ball. And of course, if you haven't signed up for Underdog, you can use my promo code Orfield. It's just my last name, Orfield. When you sign up, you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100 on Underdog. Let's talk some strategy, but while you're coming, please like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification button so you can get alerts when our shows go live. As you can see here, there are a few different contests that you can play on Underdog. There's other sites you can play too. I'm only focusing on Underdog in this video, and I'm actually only going to be looking at the gauntlet. There are different types of playoff best ball contests that you can join. They all have different rules. So make sure you check out the rules before you join any of these contests. But I want to take a look at the gauntlet specifically. This is the flagship contest on Underdog. Now, talking a little bit of strategy, I already wrote it out. So there's a written piece on Stochastic right now that's going to go over all the same things that I'm going over in this video. So if you prefer to read it, you can go find that here on Stochastic. This is what I've written up. But let's go over the general, how it works first, and then a little bit of strategy in this video. As you can see here, it starts with 11,200 drafts. I do a little math there. I'll click on the contest here so you can see 67,200 entrants in the contest. That's how many you are competing against when the contest starts. But it's different. It's drafts of 6. So it's 11,200 drafts total, 6 managers in each of those drafts. Of course, they're sequential. So when you sign up, it's just whoever signs up at the same time as you, you're going to be grouped with that group, draft against those 6 managers. It's a 10-round draft. I go over the structure a little bit here, but you're drafting 10 players. You're filling a roster each week of 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 2 pass catchers. So it's for playoff best ball, wide receivers and tight ends are just 1 position here. And then you get 1 flex player as well. So 5 players scoring for you each week. One big difference between playoff best ball is, as I alluded to at the beginning of this video, for a regular season, you have 14 weeks. That is round 1, 14 weeks. You advance at the end if you're in the top 2 of your 12-person pod. For playoff best ball, each round is just 1 week. So it starts with wild card weekend. You're competing against the 5 other people you drafted against, and just the top 2 teams move on. So you are immediately, the stakes are high. You could get eliminated. 2/3 of teams are eliminated the very first week. And then it's the same thing every week after that. So as I wrote here, for the second round, you're randomly assigned to a new pod of 14 teams, and then only 2 of the top 14. So 12 of 14 teams eliminated at the end of round 2. Finally, once you get to the third round, this is the conference championship round, you're going to be in a pod of 8 if you're lucky enough to advance there. And then just the top team moves on to the championship. That's in the Super Bowl. Only 400 teams make it to that final round in the Super Bowl. And reminder, it's 67,200 total. So the top 400 out of 67,200 make the final. But as I note here, making the final is great, but really that's not where the big money is, because the bottom 200, the bottom half of those teams that make the final win $750 each, which is great. It's a $25 buy-in. You're happy to turn $25 into $750, but you're not really drafting for last place in the final. What you really want is to win 150,000 or one of those top prizes. We can take a look at the prize structure here. 150,000 to first, 75,000 to second, 55 to third, 35 to fourth. It drops down pretty significantly, pretty quickly after. I mean, if you get in the top 15, you're probably happy with that. Maybe you're happy getting 5,000. But as I said, the bottom 200 of the final, the bottom half, just $750. So you really want to be finishing near the top of the final. And that's where the strategy comes in. A lot of people don't really have a plan when they're drafting these teams. They're just drafting the best players. They're trying to win round 1. That is not really the best way to draft in playoff best ball, because that's not where the real money is, just advancing from round 1. So general strategy for playoff best ball, I'm always trying to draft a team that could be live if the right teams make the Super Bowl, to field at least 5 players. You'd rather have more than 5 players in the Super Bowl if you can. That way you're going to have more combos to potentially win. But you want to have at least 5 players active in the Super Bowl. And of course, the better the players, the better it is for you. If you're playing for a 49er Super Bowl and your players are Juwan Jennings and Jordan Mason, that's probably not going to win anyway. It could, but generally you want the higher projected players in the Super Bowl on your team and you want at least 5 players in the Super Bowl, I'm working backwards when I'm drafting. I want to start with okay, these are 2 teams that I think could play each other in the Super Bowl. So one AFC team, one NFC team. I want to draft at least 5, 6, ideally 7 players from those 2 teams that could play each other in the Super Bowl. Because the early rounds, you're really just trying to squeak by. The first round, you just have to be the top third of your 6-person pod. You're just trying to squeak by. You don't need to dominate round one. You don't get bonus points for dominating round one. Each round, you're starting over at 0. So it doesn't really matter how well you do in round one as long as you advance beyond that pod. The real stakes come into play in that Super Bowl round. That is when you really want to have a spike week. You want to put up a ton of points in the Super Bowl and win some money there. So another note, the 49ers Ravens now are locked into bye weeks for round one, which that means they are the likeliest teams. I guess that's not the only reason, but they are currently the likeliest teams to make the Super Bowl. And you can see pulled up some other handy resources here. This is one that I've been using throughout the playoffs, but the odds differ a little bit based on where you look. But this one's just a nice, clean, shows you the odds of a team making it to the Super Bowl. Here, this has the Ravens making it to Super Bowl 58% of the time, the 49ers 48% of the time, and then a huge drop off to these remaining teams. Those odds do change depending where you look. Winning the division, we have the Dolphins 53% here, 100% to make the playoffs. This is a different metric that we're looking at here. Anyway, it doesn't show. Oh, it does a Super Bowl. So they have the Super Bowl winner here. They don't have the odds of making the Super Bowl. There are a lot of different places you can look for different odds. They are going to vary a little bit, but regardless, anywhere you look, the Ravens, the 49ers are going to be the 2 teams that are likeliest to make the Super Bowl. The tough thing with playoff best ball is you need to advance from round one, and the Ravens and 49ers also have a bye in round one. So if you build out for a Ravens 49ers Super Bowl, that's kind of the one spot where I might say it might be okay to have just 4 players from those 2 teams. You might still be live to win because it's going to be tough to advance 2 teams that had a round one bye beyond the first round of the playoffs. We had this, it happened last year. We had the Eagles and Chiefs had the round one buys. They ended up playing each other in the Super Bowl, and there were very few teams that could field a full 5-man roster in the Super Bowl last year. Same thing is likely to happen this year. If those teams make the Super Bowl, you're probably not actually going to be competing against that many teams that have 5 active players. So that's the one Super Bowl matchup that maybe I wouldn't always have 5 players for the Super Bowl. Maybe I'd be okay with having 4 players from those 2 teams if I build out that way. But in general, you want to have 5 or more players active in the Super Bowl on your team if you're lucky enough to get to the Super Bowl. So just be aware, you draft 49ers Ravens, you need to be able to get out of round one. So keep in mind, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage for the first round. If you're building for a Ravens 49ers Super Bowl, you need to pay attention to who do I have that can help me get through that first round and make up for some of those zeros I'm taking. Generally trying to avoid teams that are playing against each other in the first round. And you can see I pulled that up over here. This is the current bracket. This can change. Nothing is established already. So next week we'll be able to actually see which teams are playing against each other. We'll be able to actually strategize a little bit better. But we're trying to avoid teams that are going to play each other in the first round, drafting teams from both, because you know that you're going to be losing players by the second round if you draft teams from opposing first round matchups. So I try to avoid that. And of course, the later the teams play each other, the better it is to draft them against each other. As a note, be agile. It's tough. This is honestly, I don't have that many gauntlet teams that I've drafted that I really love, because it is really tough. You're drafting against 5 other people. Everybody has different strategies. Some people don't have any strategy, it seems, but everybody has different ideas of what they want to do. You're not always going to be able to draft the players that you want to draft. Sure, I go in, I want to draft, a 4-3-3 build where I have 4 from one team in one conference, and then 3 each from 2 teams from the opposing conference. That's probably my favorite type of build. It doesn't always work out that way. So you got to be agile. You got to adjust to what the room is giving you. Maybe you even need to change which teams you are rooting for getting the Super Bowl. So if you go in and think, hey, I think the Eagles and the Ravens are going to make the Super Bowl, but then Hurts and Lamar get drafted in the first round, probably shouldn't be drafting for the Ravens Eagles Super Bowl at that point. You probably need to adjust and think what other teams have a pretty high likelihood of making the Super Bowl. As with regular best ball, you want to be paying attention to how much talent you have at certain positions. Like you don't need to load up on 6 elite wide receivers and then just have, I don't know, a backup running back as your only running back on the team. You probably want to have some talent for each position, each round of the playoffs, and pay attention to who you are drafting. Of course, if you have any questions about any of this, you can always DM me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I am at PlayerQDFS, and I am happy to answer any questions you have. I really do love this format. I think it is a super fun format playing these playoff best ball contests. It is a little bit complicated if you haven't picked up on that, all the strategy that goes into this, how difficult it is because you need to be predicting who is making the Super Bowl. Then you need to be able to draft players for the different Super Bowl scenarios that you're trying to play out. It's a tough game. It is a very tough game. If you would rather do something a little bit simpler, I'm also going to be doing some playoff weekly winners content, which is much, much simpler. And I still think there's a lot of edge there. I don't think a lot of people are drafting correctly for playoff weekly winners. So that will be coming out within the next day or two as well. So keep your eyes out for that if you prefer a simpler format rather than playoff best ball. I love them both. I'm playing both a good amount. Anyway, that will be coming out soon. Thank you very much for watching. Please do hit that like button. And of course, use promo code Orfield or the link in the description when you sign up for Underdog. If you haven't already, get that first deposit matched up to $100. Thanks for watching and good